Hi, I'm Jeff Lowe, Chief Executive Officer of Asian Sky Group, Asian Sky Media. Here as part of our 2020 infrastructure report. As you've heard, the report itself will come out on the first day, but on the second day, we're doing a series of video clips to try to put a little context and maybe a little more personality and heart into those numbers. And so today I am joined by Dinar from Premiair in Jakarta, Indonesia. And it's certainly our pleasure to have you here, Dinar.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
As you and I were just talking, you guys do it all and have been doing it all for many years. I think you guys first started operating in the late 80s.
Back in 89.
Yeah. So you guys have been in this business for a long time. Obviously, are a mature, well-developed business aviation concern. Doing MRO. Doing charter, doing management, FBOs, the FBO in Halim Airport. So where do you see infrastructure and what do you see as the challenges? And that question really being in your home front, if you will, the challenges that are presented in Indonesia. And also feel free to comment on how you think the Asia Pacific region as a whole. But really, I'm specifically interested in how things are in Indonesia, your perceptions of that.
Okay, so I think in terms of infrastructure challenges in Indonesia or regional as an operator based in Indonesia, is we're looking at soft infrastructures, meaning the regulations, the regulatories from the local governments, such as the, let's say, the lead time for entry permit.
Right.
Because we're based in Indonesia and because of our tail numbers, sometimes it's quite difficult to receive a permit because they have a very, well, we do understand it's a different lead time for every country. But I think that's a challenge for us here in Indonesia.
Right. But as far as infrastructure, airports, FBOs, MROs, do you think the business aviation community, the industry, in Indonesia, you've got enough? You got too little? Where do you see maybe that you've got shortfalls? Yes, I understand certainly regulatory environment is maybe making it challenging, but what about the infrastructure in physical form, if you will?
Well, we're developing for sure airports in terms of airports, but we do have an absence for a general aviation terminal, if I can say. Currently there's only one operating in Bali, and others it's just basically a lounge. And you know how it is with business aviation. We do want a one-stop service for the aircraft, for the passengers, and for everything. And I think that's the absence of general aviation terminal also I think is issues for us as an infrastructure's point of view, I think.
Right. Now you operate an FBO in Halim Airport?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And where else would you find an FBO in Indonesia?
I think there's the meaning of FBO here. We're an FBO for.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point, Dina.
I know. Yeah, because our FBO here is for general aviation. And we do have a lounge, we do have an MRO, we do have our own ground handling, but as in one whole general aviation terminal that has all, it's it's a challenge because it's an absence. We don't have that facilities yet currently.
So what do you have in Halim Airport then?
It's an executive lounge basically. We do manage an executive lounge, and we do have our own ground handling. We do process our own permit, so we do arrange our own trips. So from that point of view, yes, we're an FBO. But as a terminal itself, no. It's so
I understand. No, it's much the same sort of answer or question I've had from other people that I've spoken to. Is, well, what do you mean by an FBO?
because we do understand that the FBO itself is quite wide, broadened.
Well, for instance, in Halim, are you doing your own CIQ, or do people still have to go through the terminal building?
No, we can do our own CIQ.
Okay.
So yes, we do. We try to give the clients of the business aviation A to Z solutions for
Yep.
their requirements.
Yep.
However, there's several challenges because we don't have a one-stop big GAT, general aviation terminal,
Yep.
As a support for the business. I think that's what we're trying to say.
Okay. Yeah, those are few and far between throughout the whole Asia Pacific region.
Yeah, true. Because as throughout Asia Pacific, I think there's only several that can be named as a general aviation terminals and can be claimed as a general aviation terminals.
Okay. So when you think of, okay, so we talked about FBOs, and so then for maintenance facilities, a lot of the people that I've spoken to, on the maintenance, on the MRO side, certainly the feeling was that there was enough given the size of the fleet, and it was sort of well matched as far as that was concerned. Do you feel the same, or is there a lack of MRO facilities, maintenance facilities?
No, I think I have to agree.
Recognizing that you're a provider as well,
of
course,
sure.
and a big one. So.
Well, I think I have to agree with them when they say it's enough. Well, considering the fleet numbers for Asia Pacific, and then there's several maintenance facilities that we know of that specifically for such and such of aircraft type. So I think it should be enough. Well, for now.
Because you guys are an authorized facility for Embraer and also
for the Embraer Legacy 660, and then also for the Cessna Grand Caravan. We both license for that.
Which, as we know, are very popular products in Indonesia.
Yeah, correct.
Sphere, shall we say? Right.
Yeah. Sorry about the thunder. It's been raining.
Obviously, with everyone, we've been talking about life as it is now, and certainly under COVID-19 and the pandemic. So how has that impacted Premiair and your operation? And if you will, how has it made your life more difficult from an operational standpoint, and the FBO and the MRO? A lot of times what I ask kind of people to do to give some context, where were you at the end of, as far as a business and looking forward? I mean, the end of 2019, COVID was nowhere. And so we all looked forward to 2020, and we all had our plans, our business plans, and submitted our budgets and, promptly threw those all away. But, kind of where were you guys at the end of 2019, just to give some context to what then happened in 2020?
Well, we do have.
How big is your fleet at the moment?
Currently, we have 16, 1/6 rotary and fixed wing.
Yep.
And we do have several business plans that we have to postpone for sure because the pandemic and all.
Yep.
I think for the first 3 months since I think March, April, and May, we don't have to mention it's almost on full stop. Zero. Full stop.
Yeah, I know, and the number,
Yeah, because I think the world is in shock. So we have to just postpone everything and stop everything at the moment, and trying to figure out our way, trying to strategize the business plan for 2020.
Sure.
And luckily, I think, well, I can say luckily because during this COVID, people still I think by the end of June, people start to think about traveling again for business, and they're starting to look at the business aviation side, private jet, because they're not.
But I would have thought there might have been a different experience, your rotary fleet and your fixed wing fleet.
Oh, yeah, the basically the rotary is for private use, so it's still flying, but only for private use. But for our fixed wing, which we dedicated for charter, is since I think by end of June, luckily, because people start to maybe they strive and they want to start traveling again for business and all. And they're not comfortable using the commercial, so businesses start increasing again by I think end of June, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And then
are you back to 2019 levels or not?
Of course not yet, but I
Okay,
think
yeah,
we have an achievement of well, we have a pretty good achievement
right.
considering this whole situations and this whole pandemic. I think.
And obviously, as far as a country, Indonesia's huge, really, spread out across a big,
Yeah.
big area. So
Mhm.
again, I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dina, that a lot of the flying that came back was domestic flying.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
I
I mean,
think
yeah,
because during this whole pandemic, the we have all countries are really stringent
yeah,
on the policies for travel policies and everything. So
yeah,
it's quite a challenge. I think maybe 90% is is just declined if
right.
we're
Yeah,
requesting
yeah.
fly to international flight. So yeah, domestic flight.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers in China, for instance, on flight activity,
Mhm.
as far as the domestic flying,
Mhm.
it has bounced back from
Yeah, true.
2019 levels, and in some cases exceeded what
Yeah.
was 2019, and that
Mhm.
gets back to your comment about there being some pent-up demand, if you will. But when you look at the international numbers, they're
Right.
still down 98%. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
going
because
nowhere.
we can't really do anything about that because well we do understand that the government needs to
Yeah,
make this sort of I think precautions,
sure.
but
Yeah.
yeah, so I think we've been living off of domestic flights currently.
Yeah. And again, just going back to the rotary side, so most of your rotary flying is private as well. It's not
Yes.
doing any utility work or that sort of
No, currently it's only for private use.
thing. Okay. Okay. All right. Um, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there about mentioning the government.
Mhm.
How, I guess, has the government, well, most of the government certainly recognize the need for the commercial airlines and
Mhm, mhm,
the
mhm,
airports themselves,
mhm.
particularly when it comes to, as we just mentioned, the drying up of any sort of international travel.
Yeah.
So certainly the airlines have been helped. Has
Mhm.
there been any sort of subsequent help provided by the government to the business aviation GA community in Indonesia, or have you guys been having to sort of survive on your own, if you will?
No, it's the government been it's there've been a lot of support from the government.
Good,
Let's
good,
say from the I think from the airport charges, they've
right,
been lowering the airport charges, and then they've been given an STL, short terms what do you call it, short term escalations
okay,
for the maintenance for the maintenance side
right,
because
okay,
well some maintenance we need to fly out to Singapore and everything, so there's an escalation exemption for that, and then there's an exemption for the crew training, and then there's also exemption for the crew medicals license, and there's been a lot of support from the government
yeah,
recently.
and you kind of touch on an important point. Sometimes that support doesn't need to be monetary. There
Yeah,
are
yeah,
lots of
yeah.
other,
Those are
there
the
are lots of
three.
other ways
Yes,
to, if you
sure.
will, ease our pain
Yeah,
by,
yeah.
let's say,
Mhm.
as far as crew and
Sure,
their license and
sure.
expiry and
Yeah,
retraining. Oh yeah, so
yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
That's good.
There's been a lot of exemptions given by the government, and that's really helps us a lot. So it shows their support towards general aviation in Indonesia, I think.
Right, great. Last question, and this is the crystal ball one.
Mhm.
I think, well, we all hear talk of vaccines, and so maybe we're all finally seeing an light at the end of the tunnel.
Hopefully.
Yep, hopefully.
Mhm.
Not quite sure knowing when again,
Mhm.
but if you had to take a look ahead, what do you think you'll see in a couple of years or more, specifically regarding infrastructure in Indonesia? You mentioned before some projects were put on hold.
Mhm.
I guess you'd assume that those would get back going, but what are you seeing also potentially on as far as airport development or anything else that would be an aid to the industry for us?
I think well we have to take a look maybe after the second quarter.
Mm,
Uh, but I do believe that it'll start to get better because
yep,
uh, people needs to move forwards, and then business must be keeping running. So yeah, and the infrastructures itself. I think because I know that several projects are on hold, but I think by next year, at least by second quarter, it will, it will start to run again.
Right.
I strongly believe so.
Okay, so if you kind of take that belief and those projects come to fruition, what is it going to mean in 2 or 3 years' time?
I think the increasing numbers of.
We've got you on tape, and we're going to hold you to this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the increasing numbers of general aviation populations in Indonesia.
I mean, are you seeing, for instance, I mean, a lot of the comments from other people we've interviewed is that certainly the pandemic, if you want to talk about a silver lining, has certainly heightened the awareness of the role that we can play. And certainly we find it in our own business as well. Some of those individuals that before were kind of sitting on the fence, for them now it's like, no, it's health and safety, it's my family. Whatever those concerns I had were before are gone. I need to find a way to, access this tool, if nothing for my own business, but also for my family's welfare. Yeah. And so are you seeing that increased interest in business aviation as well?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, back in late June this year, it started to increase. And I think the people, it's basically it's back on the public start to educate themselves on the needs of private jet, the needs of business aviations, because of what you said, the safety of themselves and their families and their loved ones. So yeah, I strongly believe that the silver lining of this pandemic is the awareness of business aviations, the people that were still, whether should I or shouldn't I, and then it's going to be leaning forward to yes, I should.
Yeah. The challenge for us collectively is going to be bringing them into business aviation and keeping them, of course. It's sort of that you get that one chance to make a first impression, and I think some of them are going into business aviation wise, but some aren't. And owning it, as you would say as well, owning an airplane is one thing, but it costs a certain amount of money to run it every year as well. So that might come as a shock to some people. It's a tool that can provide great service, but it's not inexpensive. Let's put it that way. So yeah. No, thank you very much for the comments today. It's great that you could join us. I really, really appreciate it, Dina. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon and the weekend. Okay.
You too. Thank you.